Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Shravanam Diaries Podcast.
Hare Krishna, we are continuing to read the Bhagavad Gita as it is, the book by His Divine Grace, Abhay Charanaravinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, Chapter 12, Devotional Service, Text 9. Atha chittam samadhatum na shaknoshi mayi sthiram abhyasa yogena tato mamichaptum dhananjaya. My dear Arjuna, O winner of wealth, if you cannot fix your mind upon me without deviation, then follow the regulative principles of Bhakti Yoga. In this way, develop a desire to attain me. So why do we follow principles of Bhakti Yoga? To develop desire to attain Krishna, just because we can't fix our mind without deviation. Okay, purport. In this verse, two different processes of Bhakti Yoga are indicated. The first applies to one who has actually developed an attachment for Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, by transcendental love. And the other is for one who has not developed an attachment for the Supreme Person by transcendental love. For this second class, there are different prescribed rules and regulations one can follow to be ultimately elevated to the stage of attachment to Krishna. Bhakti Yoga is the purification of the senses. At the present moment in material existence, the senses are always impure, being engaged in sense gratification. But by the practice of Bhakti Yoga, these senses can become purified, and in the purified state, they come directly in contact with the Supreme Lord. In this material existence, I may be engaged in some service to some master, but I don't really lovingly serve my master. I simply serve to get some money. And the master is also not in love. He takes service from me and pays me. So there is no question of love. But for spiritual life, one must be elevated to the pure stage of love. That stage of love can be achieved by practice of devotional service performed with the present senses. This love of God is now in a dormant state in everyone's heart. And there, love of God is manifested in different ways, but it is contaminated by material association. Now, the heart has to be purified of the material association, and that dormant natural love for Krishna has to be revived. That is the whole process. To practice the regulative principles of Bhakti Yoga, one should, under the guidance of an expert spiritual master, follow certain principles. One should rise early in the morning, take bath, enter the temple, and offer prayers, and chant Hare Krishna. Then collect flowers to offer to the deity, cook foodstuffs to offer to the deity, take prasadam, and so on. There are various rules and regulations which one should follow. And one should constantly hear Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam from pure devotees. This practice can help anyone rise to the level of love of God, and then he is sure of his process progress into the spiritual kingdom of God. Alright, so this practice can help anyone rise to the level of love of God, and then he is sure of his progress into the spiritual kingdom of God. Jai. This practice of bhakti yoga under the rules and regulations with the direction of a spiritual master will surely bring one to the stage of love of God. Jai. Haribo. Abhyase pyasamarthosi matkarma paramo bhava madarthamapi karmani kurvan siddhima vapsyasi. If you cannot practice the regulations of bhakti yoga, then just try to work for me, because by working for me you will come to the perfect stage. Purport. One who is not able even to practice the regulative principles of bhakti yoga under the guidance of a spiritual master can still be drawn to this perfectional stage by working for the Supreme Lord. How to do this work has already been explained in the 55th verse of the 11th chapter. One should be sympathetic to the propagation of Krishna consciousness. There are many devotees who are engaged in the propagation of Krishna consciousness, and they require help. So even if one cannot directly practice the regulative principles of bhakti yoga, he can try to help such work. Every endeavor requires land, capital, organization, and labor. Just as in business, one requires a place to stay, some capital to use, some labor, and some organization to expand. So the same is required in the service of Krishna. The only difference is that in materialism one works for sense gratification. The same work, however, can be performed for the satisfaction of Krishna. Haribol! And that is spiritual activity. If one has sufficient money, he can help in building an office or temple for propagating Krishna consciousness. Or he can help with publications. There are various fields of activity, and one should be interested in such activities. If one cannot sacrifice the results of his activities, the same person can still sacrifice some percentage to propagate Krishna consciousness. This voluntary service to the cause of Krishna consciousness will help one to rise to a higher state of love for God, whereupon one becomes perfect. I've seen this couple. I know a couple of devotees, or couples, husband, wife, and the wife, she is very much into practicing the principles of bhakti yoga, right? So she is initiated, she's even second initiated, she is in the process, in the movement, and this and that. She's chanting, of course, and everything. And her husband, he's not. He is very much favorable to Krishna consciousness. He is very much involved in every single devotional project she has. But he is not chanting, and he is not accepting a spiritual master officially. And at first, they kind of they were sharing because they have live streams. I listened to that maybe a couple of years ago. I just remember that they were discussing that, and she's fine with that, and he's also fine with that. He's completely in, he goes for Harinamas, but he wears civil clothes. But he's supporting her in every respect. He's donating to the cause of Krishna consciousness, but for some reason he is not officially becoming that sort of bhakti yoga practitioner. And I believe that if we would really, like, I know preachers who know this category of people and who are able to cultivate them and engage them very nicely. And we're not supposed to look down upon such people. Like this devotee, this husband of, I can tell their names, it's Nila Chala Chandra, and her husband is, I forgot his name actually, I think it's Dmitri, if I'm not mistaken. They're amazing. They're doing a lot of service in the movement of Srila Prabhupada, and her husband specifically, like, he is the one arranging, organizing, protecting his wife when she is out there serving in the mission. They're now in India, actually. Yeah, they're in India right now with their Harinama tour. So, and like he himself was personally sharing also that, it's just like he loves to serve the devotees. But officially, you can say he's not initiated. So I believe that, it's normal among devotees to kind of sometimes it can be addressed to like such devotees like him, or even to the kids of the devotees. It's natural to kind of like, when are you getting initiated? Or like, get initiation and this and that. And it's exciting because we want to maintain the spiritual culture. We want to engage everybody in the direct processes of devotional service. We want everybody to, it's wonderful. And at the same time, I believe that if we don't acknowledge that this category that we've just read about, that the category of devotees, they're devotees, but they cannot practice the regulations of Bhakti Yoga. But they work for Krishna, and they're devotees. Right? It says there, the voluntary service will help one to rise where one becomes perfect. So it's a stepping stone. And I believe that, only when we acknowledge that every single person will have their own journey to the spiritual life, to the spiritual destination in their spiritual life, and everyone's journey is worthy of respect and honor, and everyone's journey is very personal, and Krishna has his personal relationship with everyone, and we should, support, encourage, and inspire everyone's journey. Now let's go to the next verse and read that how Krishna, he's so merciful, basically, right? He's like, can't do this, please do this. If you can't do this, please do this. So what if we unable to work in this consciousness? What do? Krishna says immediately in the next verse, Athaitadapya shaktosi kartum madhyogam ashritah sarva karma phalatyagam tatah kuru yatatmavan. If, however, you're unable to work in this consciousness of me, then try to act giving up all results of your work, and try to be self-situated. Purport. It may be that one is unable even to sympathize with the activities of Krishna consciousness because of social, familial, or religious considerations, or because of some other impediments. See how Srila Prabhupada is so considerate, right? Srila Prabhupada, he lists what could be impediments, and it's true, there could be such impediments. Social, familial, even religious considerations, right? So, let's read further. If one attaches himself directly to the activities of Krishna consciousness, there may be objections from family members or so many other difficulties. For one who has such a problem, it is advised that he sacrifice the accumulated result of his activities to some good cause. Such procedures are described in the Vedic rules. There are many descriptions of sacrifices and special functions of punya, or special work in which the result of one's previous action may be applied. Thus, one may gradually become elevated to the state of knowledge. It is also found that when one who is not even interested in the activities of Krishna consciousness gives charity to some hospital or some other social institution, he gives up the hard-earned results of his activities. That is also recommended here, because by the practice of giving up the fruits of one's activities, one is sure to purify his mind gradually. And in that purified stage of mind, one becomes able to understand Krishna consciousness. Of course, Krishna consciousness is not dependent on any other experience, because Krishna consciousness itself can purify one's mind. But if there are impediments to accepting Krishna consciousness, one may try to give up the results of his actions. In that respect, social service, community service, national service, sacrifice for one's country, etc., may be accepted, so that someday one may come to the stage of pure devotional service to the Supreme Lord. In Bhagavad Gita 18.46, we find it is stated, Yatah pravrityar bhutanam. If one decides to sacrifice for the supreme cause, even if he does not know that the supreme cause is Krishna, he will come gradually to understand that Krishna is the supreme cause by the sacrificial method. Jai. Text 12. Shreyo hi jnanam abhyasaj jnanadhyanam vishishyate dhyanat karma phalatyagas tyagachantir anantaram. If you cannot take to this practice, then engage yourself in the cultivation of knowledge. Better than knowledge, however, is meditation, and better than meditation is renunciation of the fruits of action. For by such renunciation, one can attain peace of mind. Purport. As mentioned in the previous verse, there are two kinds of devotional service: the way of regulative principles and the way of full attachment in love to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. For those who are actually not able to follow the principles of Krishna consciousness, it is better to cultivate knowledge, because by knowledge one can be able to understand his real position. Gradually, knowledge will develop to the point of meditation. By meditation, one can be able to understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead by a gradual process. There are processes which make one understand that one himself is a Supreme, and that sort of meditation is preferred if one is unable to engage in devotional service. If one is not able to meditate in such a way, then there are prescribed duties, as enjoined in the Vedic literature, for the Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, and Shudras, which we shall find in the last chapter of Bhagavad Gita. But in all cases, one should give up the results of or fruits of labor. This means to employ the result of karma for some good cause. In summary, to reach the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the highest goal, there are two processes. One process is by gradual development, and the other process is direct. Devotional service in Krishna consciousness is the direct method, and the other method involves renouncing the fruits of one's activities. Then one can come to the stage of knowledge, then to the stage of meditation, then to the stage of understanding the Super Soul, and then to the stage of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. One may take either the step-by-step process or the direct path. The direct process is not possible for everyone. Therefore, the indirect process is also good. It is, however, to be understood that the indirect process is not recommended for Arjuna, because he is already at the stage of loving devotional service to the Supreme Lord. It is for others who are not at this stage. For them, the gradual process of renunciation, knowledge, meditation, and realization of the Supersoul and Brahman should be followed. But as far as Bhagavad Gita is concerned, it is the direct method that is stressed. Everyone is advised to take to the direct method and surrender unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. Jai Jai. Should we? No. Okay, we'll stop here for today. Thank you so much for tuning in today. The book links, previous episodes timeline, and biography of the author can be found on shravanamdiaries.com. The link is in the description, and we shall see you tomorrow.
Hare Krishna, Krishna